Hey friends, welcome to the Paws and Profits podcast. I'm Karen Laws, the interior dog trainer, and if you're joining us for the very first time, please be sure to subscribe and ring the bell for notifications so that you don't miss a single episode. Today, I have the great honor of speaking with my longtime friend and mentor, Mr. Mark Goldberg. We are talking not only about dog training and business growth, but also about the fantastic books that he has to offer, and the links to those books are in the show notes below. Be sure to check them out. They're in my library. They're among my favorite books. And he also partners up with the Monks of New Skete, who are also great mentors and friends of mine. So let's get started. And I hope you enjoy the show. Remember, be sure to subscribe and we'll see you on the other side. Hey, and welcome, welcome, Mark. I'm so excited that you're here. Honestly, I can't believe it. We have not seen each other in how long? Like
I think it's been 6 or 7 years since an IACP conference, but we've known each other 20 some years. How long is it?
Well, since 2007, 18 years. I've been in
We had a
business.
good time. Just for the audience, Karen and I had a wonderful time at a workshop, holed up in a house for like a week without leaving and just eating, breathing, sleeping, and dreaming about dogs for an entire week.
Yeah. And I met some lifelong friends at that week. You know, Ruth Chrysler was there. Her and I shared a room together. Mary was one of the instructors. Chase, I believe, was there. Like all people that I've kept in touch with ever since that time. It was certainly a life-defining moment for me and so much fun. To be honest with you, that was in the days it was easy to drive across the border. I had that big rig. I had 2 nice little labs with me, and I was scared to death because I didn't know anybody except through the Yahoo groups, and I was just this little Canadian girl from the country. And it was a life-defining moment. I've taken so much of that.
Well, that was really a seminal moment for me too, because that was the first workshop that I ever taught.
Wow.
And so Mary and I were really determined to do a good job. And what we wanted to do was to just open our brains and let everything that we knew out. And we had a really interesting, blend of people, different aspects of life and of the world. And anyway, I don't want to dwell on that, but it was wonderful meeting you, and look how much contact that we stayed in.
Exactly. And we both been through the IACP together as presidents and came out with very few battle scars.
We shared a foxhole.
Yes, we did. We did.
We were battle buddies, this lady and me.
Well, that's right. That's right. What I want my audience to grab today, or our listeners to grab today, is the importance of diversification. Because even when I first went to that very first workshop, you did it so well, I would never have known it was your first workshop. You certainly didn't dwell on that. And you talked a little bit about what your background was, but it was so well put together. And then you've just continued to move forward and move forward and move forward and still maintain that passion for dog training. And I think that it's that power of diversification. We all start, well, I don't know, you tell me, you've been training dogs since you were how old?
11.
11. Was that your first dog, Gus? I saw that in your bio, and the age was missing.
Yeah, I'm just gonna grab a copy of my book for those of you who are on audio. I'm holding a copy of Let Dogs Be Dogs, and somewhere in here, just take me a second, so that for the people on YouTube, I can show this picture.
There it is. That's the picture. Yeah.
Yeah, that's me and my first dog, Gus. I think this picture is 1973 or so. And
Yeah.
since that age, 11, 12, I was really obsessed about 2 things: dogs and writing. I just never dreamt that I would get to put them together. So here we are.
So, what kind of writing? Because I write lesson plans, and I'm a science brain. Like my brain goes back to science. My degree's in science, and I suck at storytelling and weaving those things together. And I always see writing as storytelling, so I just never did it.
Well, then we're a mirror image of one another, because my math and science is very weak, but my creative and my language arts are strong. And so what I started writing was creative fiction, creative writing.
Okay.
Short stories. Eventually, though, I was trained to convey facts, which is a good thing, because I wound up writing for not only the high school newspaper, which was kind of a fun endeavor, but then the college newspaper, which was very serious. And so I learned how to write a news article. And then I went into publishing in New York City right after college, and I learned to do magazine writing. So I learned to convey facts.
In a way that was digestible.
Right. But eventually I started writing nonfiction, which is like how-to stuff with dogs.
Right.
And it's a mix of creativity, because if you don't tell stories about how my life as the author has changed because of dogs, how I've been able to assist people whose lives have changed, if you don't interject human life into the story with a dog training book, then what you wind up with is a cookbook. Put each here, put hand there, put foot there, yank and go. And it becomes very dry. And I started writing with the Monks of New Skete, which I'm sure we'll talk about at some point, but their whole thing is about how to form relationships with dogs and people, and how training training serves and builds the relationship. So that's really where I wanted to focus.
So, and yeah, and there's a blend there because you also, one of the things that I remember in your well, as you say, your very first workshop I ever went to, which highlighted the value of mentorship because you've been a direct and indirect mentor for me ever since then. And yes, I do have your book, one of them. And it was how you bring those two things together, the relationship with the dog, but also the relationship with the clients. And there's one line I remember you said at that, what I call the workshop after the workshop, which is always the fun part, sitting
Yeah,
around.
right.
Like,
Right. Yeah.
yeah, and you said you really want to build the relationship with the owner as much or more so than the dogs. And the next line was defining because that was before PayPal and all those things. But you said because the owner writes the checks.
Right. I think about it. The line in my head is because dogs don't have checkbooks.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
we're old. So back in those days, people wrote a check.
That's right. It was checkbooks, like when
Dogs don't have Venmo, and they still don't.
and no, exactly, and that stuck with me, and one of the things I've diversified in my business is I teach, personality styles and how to identify them and how to connect with them and how to relate and how to know who's who, and what works and what doesn't, so, um, so so you've actually answered one of my questions was, why did you choose to start writing books, and who is your target audience? Obviously, dog trainers, but it's gotta
It's the
be.
dog owner, really. With a book, we're reaching the dog owner, although there's so much information that dog trainers either don't know or find helpful for their clients. The dog trainers have really helped the monks and I a lot with these books. Well, then there's three of them. Look, I'm just going to hold. Here's Let Dogs Be Dogs. This is how to live with a dog. Because, if you train a dog twice a day for 30 minutes, it's an hour. This book tells you what to do in the other 23 hours of the day.
This was the foundation for my motto or my tagline, which is training time is all the time.
100%. And whether you realize it or not, we're presented with a myriad little teachable moments throughout the day, and it's whether you take advantage of those or not that determines the outcome, the eventual relationship with your dog. So, the Let Dogs Be Dogs, how to live with your dog, the art of training your dog, kind of self-explanatory, how to train a dog, but it contains the why. Also, I don't like training books that say do this, do that, but don't tell you why you're doing it.
That's right. I
Because I
agree.
I feel like intelligent people deserve an explanation so that otherwise you might not get buy-in. So, how to live with your dog, how to train your dog, and then completing the trio, how to play with your dog. Because if we play with intention, there are lessons contained within games that we could do with dogs that teach really critical concepts that we need our dogs to know. So, I know we deviated onto books, but ultimately, the reason that I want to form a relationship with the owner is the owner, at the end of the day, they're the one who lives with that dog, and they get to make all of the decisions about what happens with that dog. And what we dog trainers do, metaphorically speaking, is we figure out what medicine this particular dog needs. We teach it to the dog, we show the owner, and we explain it to the owner. But at a certain point, they get to determine, listen, am I going to take this medicine or am I not?
Mhm.
I try to make the medicine grape flavored, and chewable for my owners so that it's easy.
Right, right.
And sometimes dog trainers assign these they turn the training of the dog into being Sisyphus, who had to carry the boulder up the hill. And then when he got there, it fell down. He had to go put it back up over and over and over again. And if you do that to a client, well, they're going to give up rapidly. My job is to create understanding for the dog and the owner, make that connection, and then empower the owner to be able to do it. If you don't have enough relationship with the owner, if you get annoyed by the owner, then at the end of the day, the one who suffers is, well, the dog, and then somewhere down the line, your own personal business, because you're not really their guy.
Yeah.
I want all of us, each and every dog professional listening, I want you to be that family's dog person so that when they think of friends, family, neighbors, even years later, who helped me, and then you're the one, that they contact because you bonded with them.
Mhm.
And that can be hard to do. Honestly, even for me, after all these years, I still have to sometimes
Yeah.
remind myself. I've heard this question 10,000 times before. This is basically a protest. This is hard. I have feelings. It makes me sad. And then you have to kind of refresh yourself, reset emotionally so that you can tell them, like, look, this is what it's going to take to succeed. Let me explain why. And then you decide, but I'm going to help. I'll be here for you. And that can be very, very tough to do. If I taught you anything, let me tell you what I was taught. And I was taught by a monk. I don't have the monk card, you know. But my co-author, brother Christopher from the Monks of New Skete, he could play the monk card. And I remember once he and I were at BookCon. It was a huge convention at Jacob Javits Center, probably 10,000 people there. Hillary Clinton was speaking, John Grisham was speaking. We spoke, although in a smaller part of the small part of the venue. And I remember it was when we launched our first book, and I said to him, like, what's the best part of this for you? I said, I think for me it might be, like my name just going on after me. And he goes, well, that's nice. He goes, but that's not it. And I'm like, well, what's it? And just then, before he could tell me what it was for him, this woman came rushing up. He was in a robe, by the way, the monk's robe. I was not. And they won't even lend me one. And
I wonder why.
right. I keep threatening to wear a bathrobe when I'm up there. But we both had German shepherds with, on the leash. A woman came up and, are you the monks? And I was like, yes. Before she can stop herself, she's hugging him. And then she realized I'm hugging a monk. So she kind of controlled herself a little more. Because it was like, and she said, I'm sorry. She goes, I had this boxer like 25 years ago, my first dog, my soulmate, my heart dog. She said, and I didn't think I was going to be able to keep him. He was such a maniac. He was almost dangerous to be around. She said, and I got your book, How to Be Your Dog's Best Friend. And I just did what it said. I trained my dog and he lived to 15 years. He was the light of my life. And she goes, every day I think about that dog. And because of you.
Yeah.
So when that encounter was over, he looked at me and he said, that's it, because that's what it is. Because
And that
people that you never met.
Exactly. And that book's fun that you referenced that book. That was my very first ever book when I first I wasn't even a dog trainer then. I just got a lab. I was gonna get into field trials and I wanted to do this. And that was my very first ever book. And I still do tricks out of that. And just before the pandemic, when I was building up my team, I had a bunch of trainers and new people coming and going. Someone stole that book. So someone must have really liked
Well,
it.
it's gone into the ether in a good way, let's hope.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the power of that. One of the biggest that I think you've touched on it because one of the things I see with new dog trainers, especially, and I was guilty of this, and maybe that's why it resonates with me, is we go into a home, and for those that go to people's homes, or they come to you and they come with this dog, like as you say, same old, same old. You know what the solution is. You just want to get to the solution here. What's wrong with you? Don't say to the client what's wrong with him. You take the dog, you do this, that, 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 and you hand it back. Just do that. Now, 20 years later, there's days I still want to do that, but I understand the context. And so what my message to new trainers always is, that's not even the primary reason they're there. The primary reason they're there is because they just want someone to hear them.
Oh, that's so true.
Yeah, and then you can start. Then you can start to build the relationship, and that's why I don't do 4-session programs or even 10-day board and trains anymore. I do them minimum 3 weeks because I want that time. They don't know you.
Well, we'll talk more about that, but I do want people to stop and think about what you just said, which is they want you to hear them because in reality, they cannot hear you until you hear them first. Even if you know what they're going to say, and even if you've heard it 25,000 times before, it's the first time for them. Think about your doctor. God forbid your doctor's got to give you some challenging news. They've probably said this 25,000 times, told somebody, well, now you're diabetic, so let me tell you what you got to do. Anyway, what I'm just saying is you got to be heard. You have to listen before you can talk. And that can be hard for us because after all these years, I still want to jump to the solutions too.
Me too. And I remember one of the things that you taught me, it was after the workshop, but it was during one of the IACP conferences. And I was just scratching my head at the time going like, what is with these people that don't want to do the work? And what you said to me, it's stuck with me and it's made me a lot of money. I have
What was it?
because people sign up for 6 sessions and I just do that to set the boundaries. We're going to start here. Our goal is to end there. And what you said to me was they show up the next week and they haven't left the gate yet. We just keep repeating that. And we come to the end of 6 sessions and we're still only at the gate, not because of what you're teaching is wrong or not functional or doesn't work, but because they're not doing the homework. And the first thing they always say is, well, we didn't have time to do anything this week. And so you just keep staying on that lesson and you get to the end of 6 weeks and the magic question is what? How you feel about this? Well, I really think I need more help. Great. Well, how about we just sign on for another 6 weeks? And you just keep going and you can't judge them. And I find, like you're saying, when you're beginning and even when you're further along, you just want to jump to the solution. But when you hear them and when you acknowledge them and you say, yeah, life is busy, that's partly where I coined the training time is all the time. When they say, I just didn't have time to train the dog, I said, gee, did you go out the door? Or did you let him out of the crate? Or did you put him in the crate? You pick on little things and then they start to go, oh, they laugh.
Exactly. You give them a strategy where they can integrate training into life, and then naturally, you take the problem that they have, which is I have no time. I was just conferring with a client just this morning who tells me she sleeps 3, 4 hours a day. That's all she has because of work. So I'm
Mhm.
trying to integrate what she can do for her dog, who is
Right.
a high energy boy and needs stuff.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, if you get judgmental with your clients, they sort of tend to close their ears and then they don't hear you anymore. I sometimes it's just ignorance. Listen, here's a confession. Um, I like cars, but I don't know much about them. I know more than I did when I was like 25 or, early 20s. I take this car in, to get an oil change because like nobody told me. I mean, I wasn't raised by a dad with a wrench, right? Okay. Dad was elsewhere.
Yep.
So, what did I know? And mom didn't know anything. 50,000 miles on it. I had never changed the oil. It
Oops.
was still running. It was,
Yeah.
as far as I knew, it ran fine. But the mechanic, he starts to try and get this sludge, I guess, out of the engine. And he looks at me and he could have said, Let me explain to you about oil change. And then he would have made a lot more money off of me. But he looked at me and he goes, couldn't you at least have changed the effing oil? And that's what he said. And I was like, okay, you know what? I've learned something just as powerfully as I would have learned it the other way. But I also learned was don't come back here.
Exactly.
So I got 2 pieces of information. I'm doing it wrong, so maybe I gotta try and do it right, and I don't like this place,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
So
Hey.
at the end of the day, if life gets in the way, for your clients, you have to just accept that and, tell them what they can do as you're explaining, "Did you go out the door?" And I know what you mean by that, but you might wanna flesh that out a little bit for the.
Well, yeah, I do. I can get away with a little bit of humor because I kinda have a twinkle when I do it. I go, "Come on,
Oh, yeah.
you go out the door, right?" And I'll say, "And did you let him run out ahead of you?" "Yep." "Okay, well, that's good. So let's back that up just a little bit. Maybe we can do something there." We do flesh it out a little bit. There's times you just don't want to, right?
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
That's it. Sometimes we let it go. I have a dog too, and I don't expect perfection from my dog, but I have a few key areas in my life with her that I like. I really want what I want, and it's like
Yeah.
get here when I want you without too much. Get here when I want you, and don't eat anything too weird on your way to me. Number one, and number
Right.
two, back up a little when I don't want you in my space, and in between, don't do anything really horrible and I will give you everything you need to enjoy life, which is, for her, it is her ball and they chuck it.
And that leads so nicely into the next thing I wanted to talk to you about. And one of them is at the end of the day, whether you have a dog in for boarding and training or private lessons, this is, we have a standard like you just mentioned. And one of the things that you taught me from the very beginning, we take that dog in a boarding and training situation and we train it to our standard. And just sort of from listening to you and our conversations that we had about 3 days before it goes home, I start to bring the standard down to that just good enough standard. Once I
Pop
know.
it up a little bit.
Yeah,
Come here
that's
instead of
right.
don't come.
Exactly. So there does become over time when you get comfortable, and this is for trainers who are struggling to get that client to act perfectly, find out what their just good enough is. And that's building the relationship. That's part of building the relationship. What it is, you find out, like, people come in, they go, he really walks well on leash. And I'm looking at it, and you just,
Yeah.
kidding me? And you have to, because there's so many other things to work on, you have to say, "Are you happy with that?" And they'll be, "Yeah, we're happy with that." Well, what? And you ask a bunch of questions and set the context, so then you can move on to something else. Generally, you end up coming back to fixing the leash thing. But if
You have to really or you can't move on. But I'll tell you one little trick that has helped me over and over and over again. And that is on the forms that I give them where I give them a checklist of behaviors. There's one little essay area which just says, give me your top 3 training concerns. And then there's a note which says, all commands. That is not a training concern. Because otherwise you're going to get these big.
Oh, yeah.
At any rate, so then finally, usually what I get are something like, leash manners, jumping, coming when called, or whatever it is. But
Mhm, mhm.
that's 3 that I see super commonly, but sometimes it's potty. I had one lady write in potty, 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 on for her top 3, and then I knew,
Yeah,
okay, this is not that I'm not doing everything else, I am, but this is what I'm gonna, like, really pay special attention to. Sometimes it's jumping on the grandkids and eating off the counters. The leash is terrible, but that's not on their list, but
right.
you and I know we can't address the one without addressing the foundation of where it
Yeah.
comes from, but it's really helpful, very helpful to know what your client is concerned about because otherwise listen, quick story. I trained this dog. It was literally the first board and train dog I ever did. And I remember this. It was a yellow lab named Champ, and he was nuts. He was just a untrained, wild 3-year-old intact lab who had never had a lick of anything. He was nuts. Guy pulls up in a Jaguar. When he opens the door, the dog is like trying to like claw his way, to get at me and lick me. And trying to make sure that I would never have children again in my life. jumping on me and stuff. So I managed to get a little bit of control. I look in the car, and that it was a Jag. It was beautiful. I mean, it had pearl wood inlay, right? The leather was destroyed. The wood graining of the car clawed. I mean, he must have kept this dog in the car when he went into the store a few times. This dog destroyed the interior. I trained this dog. I don't ask the guy too much. I can see what's up. I trained the dog. And because it was early on in the board and train thing for me, man, when I trained this dog to like the trainers standard. Like I was going to be, examined whether I could continue to live or not. Right. It was like my life.
Your license, yeah.
So anyway, when the guy comes back, the dog goes, "Hello, father. So happy to see you." And the guy was a little taken aback because he kind of was like, he loved me. And I'm like, yeah, I'm pretty sure. So then, we go through everything. The dog is, yes, sir. No, sir. Watch what I can do, sir. And I hadn't been unkind to the dog, but I mean, I'm going to train this dog. Then it's time to go take him away. And the guy opens the door to this destroyed Jaguar, and the dog sits. Because I had taught him, you see at a threshold of any kind, you sit. And he's it. And the guy looks at me and he goes, he doesn't want to go home. And I'm like, no. Sorry, I forgot to tell you. I taught him to split it open doors. He goes, what do I do? I said, well, tell him to get into the car. How do I do that? And I said, I don't know. So have you ever had to hold the leash yourself before you knew what to do?
Yes. Yeah, I say to the client, I just have to get a feel for this for a minute. Just let me get a feel for this. Yeah.
And then through the leash, bzzz, into your brain, you're like, oh,
Yeah.
so I held the leash. I was like, oh, Champ, get in the car. I just put my finger. He's like, boop, Champ jumps up into the car without a command, lays down on the back seat. And the guy looked at me like, thank you. We drove in.
Whose dog is this?
Right. Well, but here's what I knew. The guy would have probably been happier if the dog would have been a little looser about things. And I know I would have saved a lot of time, and Champ might have even had more fun if I wouldn't have been so by the book. So over the years, I've learned it's not that I have a low standard for training, but let me just say, at a certain point in my board and train, we're out on my acreage, and I'm picking up sticks and throwing them on the burn pile, and the dog is playing on the property, and I'm keeping an eye on him just to make sure if he takes off after the squirrel, can it turn him around? Is that dog checking in with me periodically? Is he coming in of his own volition? Are we out there together? Or are we psychologically detached? And as long as we are psychologically attached and I can get him to periodically leave a thing and come to me, then I'm going to throw a stick for him. And as far as he knows, he's playing. But in my world, it's training because I'm teaching that dog to read the room and go home and not need a lot of commands and micromanage, which I think is really what people want.
I think that's exactly what they want. And they don't live with an automatic sit at the door like we expect and we can make it happen and so on. And so we've got the rationale for that is always good to explain to them, but they're still not going to do it. So that brings me to our question about the kerfuffle. You posted something the other day about the kerfuffle of not playing fetch with your dog. And just before you posted that, Dr. Melanie had posted something about what happens in the brain. And she'd seen the same post. I never did see it, but she'd seen the same post that says, oh my God, you can't play fetch with your dog. Just like you, I have 100 acres here. So I'm out doing stuff. Probably at least half of the time a board and train dog is here. Let me tell you a similar story. A hound that was not adoptable was brought here for board and train and ended up being surrendered here. And I didn't do a lot with him, except I took him everywhere I went pretty much because he was a cool dog. And I would take him down the trail. He's a hound. I have a trail that goes right through my property. And then I would hide and I would call him and he would come back to see how come he couldn't see me. And he ended up going to a wonderful home and they loved him. And it wasn't because we had a high standard, but it was about taking the game. He was a walker hound. So he was always looking up the trees, like looking up. So it was easy rather than on the ground. But he had to know that there was a benefit to hanging out, whether it was to throw a ball when he came in or to have something that hounds like food, to have food. But it was making that relationship stronger and more relevant in his mind. So the question about not playing fetch with your dog, one of the things that you've probably seen this, let me ask you if you've seen this, there's playing fetch and there's teaching fetch, and then there's working fetch. In my mind, and this is what I try to teach not only owners but trainers, play should be one of your best ways to get your basic foundation nailed. To sit at the TV and just throw the ball and throw the ball and throw the ball and throw the ball is not playing fetch with the dog.
Well, then you just become the human tennis ball launcher with no relevance other than do your job, do your job.
Yeah.
So you can create a more demanding dog, but to add some meaning, some structure. Something that we wrote about in The Joy of Playing with Your Dog is all good games have rules. If you just throw a few rules into a game, then the relationship becomes important to the dog as a mechanism to release the ball. So I got it. Sometimes I'll be a tennis ball launcher, but you have to put a quarter in the machine. And for me, that's a sit, a down, a come, eye contact, whatever I need from that.
That's it. One thing. Yeah, you got to give me something, and they know that then the reward becomes the play.
And don't bark in my face because I don't like that. But the funny thing is the kerfuffle, the article that you're referring to be fair, made a lot of, I thought, pseudoscientific points, which was the inner interruption of the prey drive, because if the dog is constantly sent for the ball and then doesn't get to kill the ball, the dog is going to go into an adrenaline loop and become obsessive. And I could just tell you the reason that I thought that this is hooey is that it contradicts my personal experience over and over and over again.
Yeah.
I will say, do you think that you can put a dog into an adrenaline loop with a laser pointer, because there is nothing to grab. There's nothing to
solution.
and that I have seen happen, particularly in dogs who have a tendency toward OCD anyway.
Herding
For
breed.
example, take a border collie.
Yeah,
They breed them with a certain OCD element, otherwise they wouldn't do the job.
that's right.
Right? Certain breeds just have a smaller tendency towards it than others. But in terms of fetch, because we can add so many structural rules to the game, I mean, what does a border collie find more fulfilling than herding sheep? Well, if the kill was the ultimate goal of the prey drive, then herding sheep would make border collies crazy because they don't kill the sheep. But in reality, what it uses is the instinct of the dog to cut from the herd and move where desired, either on the part of the dog or the owner, depending on who's issuing the orders at that moment. So with a dog who has high prey drive, if we channel that into fetch, we can actually satisfy the natural instincts of that dog in a way that is productive versus a way that is unproductive. And because some of the dogs who most need a productive game of fetch are the ones who are off chasing small animals and can't focus on anything other than squirrels.
That's right.
And they know where every squirrel nest is, and they're miserable to watch.
Yeah, and the important part of that, from a trainer perspective, a new trainer perspective, especially, is when people bring those dogs and say, "Well, we don't want to play fetch, or we don't want to do this," is to find what I call the hot button. Find what it is that the dog loves, because not every dog is meant to just sit down, stay, heel, come. They've got to have that outlet, and that's the whole brain release. So, like I say, I didn't see the article, but you and Dr. Melanie came up with the sort of the same conclusion, in the same way that we need this. And I mean, I trained retrievers for competition for decades, and for them, the joy was in the chase and the catch, but they didn't want to stay there and kill it. They want to come back, because the real, now Jay Jack talks about this, the actual, and so does Dr. Melanie, the actual thrill for the dog is in the chase. Once they
And
catch,
doing it again.
yeah,
And if I give you this thing with alacrity, then I can do it again.
again, exactly.
But we become the controllers of that action, so therefore we become extremely important. The one who kind of taught me a lot about that was Martin Deely, a mutual friend of ours, one of the founders of the IACP that we were both president of at one time. I'll be honest, I used to think Labradors were kind of dumb dogs. Now, I deeply regret that, to be honest, but I had only ever seen Labradors in pet dog situations. I know they're good family dogs. I always knew that. I knew they were nice dogs, well-tempered, jolly in general. Always knew all of that. But in terms of their usefulness, they were kind of dumb. When I went to Martin's, I expressed that opinion. He says, well, stop sleeping until 9, 10 o'clock in the morning, get up at 6 or 5:30, have coffee with me, and let me show you what a lab is supposed to do. And he did.
They love
Dumbfounded, because firing off these, cannons with these bumpers going into woods like half a mile away, through brambles, through water. And he's got to go stop a dog in the middle of the water. Dog turns around and he's got to adjust that dog 2 degrees, further northwest.
look at the wrist. Yeah.
And then bam, off they go. So when you discover what it is that a dog is meant to do, and even if it's a mixed breed, they're going to have tendencies of things, and vestigial instincts of things that they were meant to do.
Right.
And then when you let them do those things in response for those things that you need, you form a real partnership with that dog. But the idea is to pass that on to the owner.
That's right. And that's the other component about the genetics piece of it. Well, I just got a mutt. Well, let's see kind of what's in there, so that we can offer that fulfillment formula for the dog, so he at least gets to do something. He doesn't have to go 100 yards and stop on a dime and take a minute flick of your wrist to change direction. But I'll tell you what, that's the biggest thrill of a lifetime, is to work a
Pretty
dog.
cool.
Yeah, but
I had never seen that before, so I came away from that that particular week at Martin's dog farm with a newfound respect for labs, which has endured. But also, I've learned to have that respect for beagles, because what I found, beagle people find them impossible and stubborn. I find they just really want a beagle. They want to be a beagle. So here's my deal with the beagles. Hey, dude. Norman. Well, one of my favorite ones was named Norman. I'm like, Norman, I know where the rabbits pee. You want to see? You want to go there? I'll show you where it is. You won't have to find it. I got the rabbit pee for you. He's like, "Yeah, what do I gotta do?" I'm like, "You gotta come, you gotta sit." He's like, "Okay, I'll do that." And then treat. He's like, "Well, that wasn't so bad. Come on, let's go see where the rabbits be." And
Yeah.
as soon as they know, like, you're gonna let them be a dog, but that you
That's it.
just need a few little, trade-offs along the way. An old man with no knees who humiliated me, this old man, taught me how to train huskies. So I've been grateful to him for 40 years.
That's a feat.
And he wasn't a dog trainer. He was I was a young Turk in my early 30s taking tennis lessons, and he was in his 70s, and we were gonna volley. One day we decided to have a match, and like I said, I'm a young Turk, and I said I was trash talking him in the locker room. I said, "I'm gonna hurt you, old man. I'm gonna hurt you bad." And now I'm, not quite his age, but close. I have newfound respect. And he looked at me, he goes, "Well, you do what you got to do, young man." And I want to tell you what, I rocketed my first serve past him. I rocketed my second serve past him.
You're going
And that was dirty love. I'm like, "I told you, old man, I'm just trash talking." He goes, "You just serve the ball, Sonny." And he managed to catch that third one, and he looped it. He didn't hit it hard, but he looped it to the far back corner inside the line. So I had to run to the corner. And from there, all he did was run me corner. And I gotta tell you what, in 10 minutes, I was dead, and then it was just like they were all
Yeah.
he just kept me rocketing back and forth until the energy was gone. And one day, I'm out with a husky, and the dog is hitting the end of the line. He wants to run. That's what they want to do. And he's hitting the end of the line, hitting the end of the line. And I was like, "This is dumb. I gotta," and it came to me how that old man drained me, and he barely moved. He barely moved. He was the pivot point, and I knew that the guy had, like, no knees, and I knew this, right? His knees were shot. So, and I'm thinking, "Well, now I'm the guy," So, what I let him do now is I let him rocket past me, and I just stop him. I use my e-collar magic techniques, to gently stop him, turn him, get him. You don't have to stop. You just need to turn and run this way. And I rocket them back and forth until they're just like,
Yeah.
when they come up to me, and then we start doing it together. Whereas most dogs, I might start at the together point before I build the running point. With my running, my dogs who need to express that element of their being first, I let them. Because guys, whatever your formula is, sometimes you're going to have to modify the recipe because the dog's got an opinion too. So
Well, and that's further to that point, that's exactly what it is. You have to I let the dog tell me what's gonna work for it, and I do it with a long line. I don't start with an e-collar, but if the dog tells me that's where it's gonna be or that's what it's gonna need, I'll do that, particularly the ones that go ping, 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 back and forth. But I'll let the dog tell me, and then I just start randomly moving. Our first week here is just a little bit of consistency at the door, but on the long line, I tell people, and both trainers and clients, in majority of cases, I find the long line the most effective tool to start, just because it'll tell you so much if you're paying attention, especially with
yeah, long line. Listen, I trained dogs almost exclusively with long lines for, like, I don't know, 25 years. And all I did really with the e-collar, mind you, I wrote a whole book about e-collar, and it's the training book. And it's divided into 16 really easy to swallow steps and lessons. But at the end of the day, like, so if I'm going to give you the big freaking secret, it's merely that barely detectable but barely sensation is telling the dog you're about to hit the end of the line.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so they start paying attention to that little "excuse me." And once they know that stuff, then they start looking at you, and you could praise them, call them in, use the right body language to reward for that. And now you have a dog who goes, "You're kind of relevant. I might want to, like, I might want to do this with you because you're useful," as opposed to, you're irrelevant.
And your energy attracts me rather than repels me. Once again, the client relationship piece about building that relationship and not and you taught me you and who's Nelson Hodges talked about
Yeah.
this, another friend of ours from the IACP, who talked about none of it's personal to you. The dog's just doing what the dog does. So it's up
Pretty
to
hard
you.
to offend.
Yeah, yeah, you've got to create that diversity. So that brings me to the next sort of question. You kind of covered it. And we could talk dog stories all day. I've got a million retriever training stories that I could share with you. Actually, the most powerful moment in my whole career as a competitor was just a moment like you talked about. And the connection with the dog is so powerful. I I have to get emotional just thinking about it.
Oh, but we have those.
Yeah, 'cause you have those moments and you just know the dog is just giving you his all, and it's you and him, and, these little tiny people thought I was nuts because I was different. I would be very quiet on the line with the dog, and, it's right there, that's it, good." And then I'd say their name, "Go," and they choo, 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 and all the other dogs are going over here and going over there, and the handlers are screaming at them, and it's taking 20 minutes to get the dog to come back, and my dog just choo, choo, choo. The reeds open up, the reeds close up, and I'm thinking, okay, now what? You have to have faith. The reeds open up, the reeds close in. He swings back with the bird in his mouth. That was a defining moment, and it was like almost dark. Just so many good stories when you take your dog's purpose-bred genetics and put them to work.
And trust your dog. And
You gotta trust the dog. That's it. They're going because he disappeared, and the judge are going, well, what do you think now? And I go, he's gonna let me know. We'll see. And even in those, that was before the days of Martin, who you mentioned. When I met Martin, there was a gap. I could have, and by then I was finished my competitive days, but I said to him, I said, I've been competing with dogs for 15 years, and you've just filled in a gap that's been there for 15 years that not one other pro trainer ever could fill in for me. And it was the relationship piece. Because most of the pro trainers were dogs on the truck and get off, do your thing, and if you don't do it, you're gonna pay, and then you get back on the truck. So in my training system, the training time is all the time. The second step is relationship building, and it's both ways. So the other question, I know we're running out of time here. We could go on and on forever.
Oh, we could.
I miss the conferences where we just sit down and tell dog stories and sit around, or even the in-person workshops aren't what they used to be because of, COVID disrupted the whole world and things haven't really kind of got back to that level of excitement. We all got 5 years older. Me too.
No kidding. How'd that
Yeah.
happen?
But yeah, I don't know. You think it's not going to happen, but it does. But as I mentioned at the beginning, you were one of the first mentors I ever had before I even understood the power of having a mentor, because I'm as you know, independent thinking. I've got to figure it out. I don't want to really offend anybody or bother anybody. Your messages resonated with me for years and years. We've kept in touch. But for new and aspiring dog trainers, people that are listening to us or watching us here, and they just don't know where to begin. A lot of I as you know, I have an academy that's a hybrid. It's in person and online. I offer support both ways. But from your experience and the successes that you've had and that you've helped other people have, what is the best first step that an aspiring dog trainer or a new dog trainer, someone who just wants to get better at their craft, what would you offer? What piece of advice would you offer them?
Well, you want to train a whole lot of dogs. You want to spend a lot of time with dogs. So let's say for a moment that you're really, really new. If you have access to an academy like yours, that's brilliant, because listen, in your day and in my misbegotten youth, we had to climb uphill in the snow, barefoot, crying both ways to get to dog school. And what I mean, you're laughing, but it's so true. Because there was anything that anybody knew was a closely guarded, closely held secret. Nobody would share any information because people were very secretive and competitive. But with the advent of the internet, organizations like the IACP, Your Academy, and others, there is a desire to share information, which is where you and I both wound up, which was we know things that we think are worth sharing. And so avail yourself of those things. But at the end of the day, you're not going to learn to train a dog necessarily all alone on YouTube. You can with the right support materials. I had a really good book that will really help you. But then, and I got a Facebook group set up by the same name as the book. So, remember the book, look for it on YouTube or on Facebook, and you'll find the training group with videos. But here's the point I'm trying to make. In the first couple years, the dogs are going to teach you an awful lot. So what I think you do is you just train a bunch of dogs. You find, let's just say you don't have any money. And then you got to do this the cheap way. Then just find the local dog trainer who's got the local class. Get a dog, take it through her class. Get a second dog. And don't ask her for pay. Don't ask her to volunteer. You want to volunteer for the local dog trainer, you're going to be way more trouble than you're worth. So just pay the couple $100
Class.
Go through the class. And then get a second dog. Go through the class. Get a third dog. Go through the class. After you've gone through 3 dogs, ask if you can volunteer and help. Just, set up chairs, help pick up poop, advise a student, under the auspices of the trainer. And then once you've gotten good with that trainer, go find another one who trains differently and start it all over again. You can layer on skill, that way. Ultimately, it's the dog that's going to teach you the most. But at a certain point, you need a mentor with somebody who is, and the way you have a good mentor is they build you up. They don't tear you down. A good mentor should be very pleased when the student surpasses the master, and that happens all the time. Look at you. Look at you with your academy, young lady.
Yeah. And I've got students in my academy that are now beyond where I am as far as the size of their business and, where the things they've learned and what they're teaching other people. And I feel proud about that. When I certify them in my program, that's like, and then I watch them as soon as they get that little certification, they just, everything comes out. And and I just stand back and I go, this now they're teaching each other. And that's how it should be. I like
You
it.
know, I'm really good friends with, Heather Beck, a mutual friend of ours too, and, she was a youngin' when she came to, a Martin and Mark, workshop, and, she knew a lot before she got there. She knew a lot, but she took what we gave her and really ran with it, and, I was so pleased to write the foreword to her book,
Mhm,
which is called Heather's Heroes.
mhm.
You guys can look for that on Amazon or in books. Heather's Heroes, and I was so pleased to write that book. The introduction or the forward to her book talk about the student surpassing the master. She built an enormous business, and it's had huge impact. She's got international patents on leashes and stuff now on her sidekick. But at any rate, this is what you want. You want the kind of mentor who wants to bring you along and not hold you back.
And preferably has some experience to go with that.
Oh, yeah, because like
Things
a lot of people got good at social media. You be really careful about people who have
yeah,
more sophistication with social media and search engine optimization and less with dogs.
100%. That's why I mentioned that. I'm seeing this bombardment of sponsored ads on social media about, we can teach you to be a dog trainer in less than 6 months, and you never have to see a client, and you'll never have to do this. Give you all the templates you need, and I'm going, "Oh my oh,
Yeah,
that's just."
there's a reason that we're seeing so much of that now, Karen, you're right. And I'm being like extremely bombarded on Facebook with retail dog training advertising in my area. And the last one that caught my attention was dog training lessons, like 25 years of experience, $17 for your dog training lessons. Sign now, they're going fast. And I know the reason that we're seeing this kind of advertising now, what you said, and on the kind of like the wholesale level of,
Mm,
go into business and the retail level, I'll deal with your dog super cheap, is because times are tough.
right.
It's in uncertain economic times. Look, there was this tsunami of COVID dogs because people were stuck home with these dogs.
Yeah, tapering off now, but you're right. There
I
was.
didn't have tapered off. So when the tidal wave receded, which took several years, I mean, during the COVID era, I mean, I really think the history is going to study this period of time in terms of pre and post COVID. I mean, to belabor it, but boy, you're a lot changed. A lot of people were unfortunately hurt, obviously, not just physically, but like a lot of people had financial ruin due to it. Other people had financial benefit. We had benefit. I worked for 3 years without a day off.
Mm,
It was a lot of I didn't have to worry about the money, I had to worry about the burnout.
right. Exactly. That compassion fatigue besides because people were desperate
That's
for
correct.
help.
And they were, like, begging to get in. And then when that receded, there was a dry period for a while.
Mhm.
And that made dog trainers desperate, and it is coming back now. It's filling in to become like a more normal, more typical pre-COVID levels, but that's a little bit slow, particularly when you combine it with economic turmoil or uncertainty.
Yeah.
So that is making people rather cautious with their dollars at this point, and understandably so. I'm a little cautious with some of my purchases, but I guess what happened is during COVID, because there was so much dog training business, anybody with the least little bit of dog training knowledge printed a business card, took out a .com, and flooded the market, and they were able to make a living, whether it was part time or full time. But now the rubber is hitting the road. You really need to know your stuff, not just with dogs, but with clients and in business, because a dog trainer is not just training dogs. If you're like most of us, you're also paying the taxes, cleaning the kennels, doing the marketing. You are the answering service. You are the sales force. So the number of hats is astronomical, and I think a lot of people just weren't prepared for that, and so now they're getting nervous, wasting very hard to come by dollars, right? There are people paying thousands and thousands of dollars to marketing agencies who promise to save them. Guys, don't do that.
Boy, I'm getting some examples of that for some people that I work with who have students, and you're right, and they're getting nothing, and then they end up spending thousands more to go and get it done right, like to get help. Yeah, it's scary.
You could probably do better by just taking a couple of small entrepreneur classes at your local community college than you can by spending $10,000 with a dog training marketing company who purports to send you hot leads. I mean, I don't know. I'm not talking about anybody in particular, by the way. And if you're in that business and you're great at it and you're really helping people, well, good.
But
Because we need that. What I'm saying is, when there is blood in the water, the sharks will come. And for dog trainers, when there is tough times, you get a lot of charlatans who see easy money, and all of a sudden they're dog training experts.
I love that. I love that comparison, the easy money thing. So many new trainers I've met thought this would be easy. How
It
much can
was.
I make? If I take your yeah, how much can I make? Well, let me just say this to people that are watching, and this is gonna back us way up, back in the day kinda thing. And I think it still applies though. Don't get in this business if you're just in it for the money, because you have to love it.
You have to love it, but you also have to eat. So it's this unique combination,
True.
of what it takes. If I were to give a little bit of advice, I would say the newer, not necessarily younger, but newer dog trainers need to be really careful is with expenses. So for example, there's a lot of people that go out and they buy a bunch of kennels, they take a 2, 3 year lease on a place, they buy a van. I like
Any cus
Ramsey, right? And I was listening to Dave Ramsey just the other day, and he does a podcast, and it's on YouTube. And this dog trainer called in. He's 21 years old. He was training protection dogs probably as a hobby, got into it professionally, and 1 year later, he found himself $300,000 in debt.
I believe it.
5 year lease, tons of kennels, 4 employees, a truck. He just didn't have the business to pay for it all. So what I would say, guys, is the enemy of the beginning dog trainer, the enemy of really any dog trainer, is high fixed expenses. A fixed expense is something that you have to pay whether you have the business to support it or not, which is why so many people work out of their home to avoid a high fixed expense. Now, I'm not saying capital improvement is a bad thing, if you can work your way into it and make it work. But most of the people I know who have really big and good, with the exception of Heather, but many of the other people I know who have doggy daycare, boarding, training, kennel facilities have had incredible amount of stress and sleepless nights because many of them have to fund with small business loans and sometimes even credit cards. And these are successful people. But when the business all of a sudden recedes, payroll's got to be met no matter what, right?
That's right.
So just be careful about what you spend. I would rather be small and profitable than big and unprofitable, because what your top line is irrelevant, is your bottom line that counts always. So it's just a little bit of business talk, but at the end of the day, unless you're employed by a dog trainer, and if you're an independent contractor, then you have to learn how to eat and make sure that you'll be there next year.
Yeah, and what risks to take and what not to take. And once that and that's 100%. And that was one of the first messages you delivered at your very first workshop too, that you said it was your first one, but you talked about it like this is something you'd told a whole bunch, hundreds of other trainers. And I kept that in mind because it wasn't my first business. It wasn't my first rodeo sort of thing. And I still had a full-time job that I thought I hated, but I didn't really. And I say this to people who come to me with full-time job that just want to give it up and start their dog training business.
Oh, no, slow down. Tap the brakes.
That's right. Roll it back. Just pick a few time slots in the week when you can take it to,
Ease into it.
yeah, a few clients and ease into it. A, to be sure that you're going to like it, and B, to be sure that you're going to be good at it so that you can enjoy both. You can enjoy the dog training piece. And my dog training business became therapy when my day job got to be so stressful.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I was, and this is sort of speaking to your point, till I couldn't keep up. Like I just couldn't keep up. I was literally working. This is I do have a business coach. That story is always my business became painful for me because I would be awake at night doing emails on my laptop and I would fall asleep. My head would hit the keyboard. I'd wake up and I didn't know if I'd sent the email or not. We still start, but you have to be willing to put, in my opinion, still today in the modern times, there's way more opportunities or potential to burn out, to take on more expense than what you need with all there was no apps and programs and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Fear was a very big motivator. Fear, guys. Fear is a hell of a motivator. And what you're describing, you haven't said it this way. If you were to, if I'm your psychiatrist and we trace it back down, the reason you were doing that was you had fear of failure for whatever reason. And well, that's very
Right.
familiar. That is a very familiar feeling to me. The power of fear, if you harness it while maintaining your rational mind and you're able to think your way through a certain amount of pressure, can be highly motivational on the one hand. On the other hand, you got to figure how to make it sustainable, because you cannot live in a fear state for extended periods of time. So there were a few years here. I'm about to celebrate. This is in May. It'll be my 17th year here on my little dog farm.
Wow, I didn't know you'd been there that long.
Yeah, it's time flies.
Yes.
I don't have 100 acres. I have just about 3 acres, but here's my 3 acres, and I am wrapped in a 350-acre forest preserve that I don't pay taxes on, and
Yeah.
they groom it, and there's riding trails and horses and creeks, and it's beautiful.
Yeah.
So
Kidding.
I just have the benefit of, although I have to say, those of you who haven't seen, your land, I really feel that you should have a look at Karen Law's land because it is breathtaking where you are. And being
Yeah.
that more Midwestern,
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. I like your drone. Your drone approach of your property. I'm going to steal that idea because I really haven't droned our
oh
place.
no, you know what? You know who well, guys, if you got a property that you want drone, just call if you have a friend who's a real estate agent in your area, they know all the drone people.
That's a good point. Yeah, that's a very good tip.
And they work cheap. So
Yeah,
other than that, you know.
I like that
But
idea.
at the end of the day, I mean, there were some years where I was working 15, 16-hour days, but I had a goal, which was I had built some buildings on this property. I had spent money making capital improvements to this place. And my goal was to get them paid off as fast as possible because I didn't want to be in debt for the rest of my life.
We are so on the same page, exactly the same mindset. You know, our property was scratch. We built a house here, and then I worked out of my car. And one day I'm driving 1 hour to see a client for a 1 hour lesson, and 1 hour back. I'm thinking this is 3 hours on the road. I only got paid for 1 hour. I still have to do follow up. This has got to stop. And that was so. So you mentioned goals, and goals are steps.
Yeah.
You hit one, you go to the next one, and you
How to eat an elephant, one bite at a time.
one bite at a time. I used to stick my goals on stickies on my mirror in the morning so I could see them.
Yeah.
And that was my driver. I had that, you know, your mind, your subconscious mind eventually starts to pick up that message and recognizes that's what you're striving for. So the energy becomes easier to maintain because you know that's what the goal is. You look at your you look at your expense sheet and you look at what you got to get to cover all those numbers, and you keep moving. But yeah, fear is a good motivator, and you don't articulate it that way. Very few people articulate it that way. I wasn't so afraid. Maybe it was fear of failure, but my motivator was I want to prove something more than anything, and encouragement from people like you along the way. I remember when I showed up at your place, and at the end, you said it, Martin said it, and my veterinarian said it. They all said you need to be doing this as a business, more of a business than what you're doing. My vet, especially, when I said I've been thinking, I took Martin's message to my vet, and I said, so this is important, the power of mentorship and asking questions and being honest with people. What do you see in me? You know, and without saying that, people were telling me what they saw in me when I said, I really think I'd like to do some work with dogs. Opened up business.
Because you know what? You were very good with dogs. You are very good with people, and you're entrepreneurial. I mean, hello, God is touching you on the shoulder saying, "Do dog."
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Something I
It's a
thought.
good thing. And I got to tell you, it's very hard, guys. It's very hard to sell or provide any product or service where the product or service loves you back, but the dog loves you back. You know, and at the end of the day, when those dogs come back to visit you, the people are going to tell you that they get very happy when they make the last turn and they realize where they're going. Even if they're coming back years later for a touch up or a visitor boarding, I do continuing stuff.
Well, yeah, and I wanted to touch on that, just a little bit of an aside. We do have to go here. We could go on forever. But another piece of advice, you know, mentorship is key. Work with someone that's been there, done that, that's going to guide you because they are as invested in your success as you are, maybe even more so. But the other piece is when you're building programs, and I know on your website you've got, you know, click here for your prices and programs. But and I missed this piece at the beginning. And you know what? God bless my clients. I love my clients that I have because they kept coming back to me even when I didn't expect it. The first time someone said, "Well, what happens next?" I'm going, "I don't know." I didn't plan that, but I made it up on the fly. "Oh, well, we're gonna do this and this and this." So, what do you see as a piece of advice to new trainers who are just getting started? It's hard to see beyond the client in front of you, but there's a key to ongoing success. And can you offer some advice on that?
Well, I think it's handy to have multiple price points. And so I personally, I sell more board and train than anything else, but I really like my lessons because it gives me more time with the owner. And also these days, especially, there are certain dogs I just don't want in my kennel. So for whatever reason, but usually it will be human or handler aggression.
Yep.
You know, now I have a 12-pound little cutie. Thought he was a badass. He's in the kennel now. Oh my God, he's a love. Franklin, I want to steal this dog. They think he's scary.
Yep.
Franklin, I love this dog. But you know what? If Franklin was a boar bull, I'd probably have him coming in for lessons because I'm 67 years old and I'm just not gonna, I'm not as fast as I was.
Right.
I don't have anything to prove anymore. So you want to have various price points, various services. The people who say, "Oh my God, I couldn't part with my dog. I wouldn't let my dog sleep anywhere." Oh, really? By the way, just out of curiosity, did you homeschool the kids? No. Why don't you not think about it? Did your kids ever go to summer camp? Well, yeah. I don't know why the dog's different, but that's on you. Come in for lessons. And if you don't like doing homework, then that's fine. Just drop them off. So I want to have a variety of things to offer. And here was something that flabbergasted me. I did not expect. I just started telling people in my literature when they inquire, I just have a thing I send them and I try and keep it brief. But I actually front end loaded it with the lesson information, which I didn't used to do. I just used to give boarding school information. But what I'm getting now are people who are buying a lesson package. And when they complete the lesson package, they do a boarding school package, which I did not expect that. I have a dog in Cal right now who did her lesson package. And she's kind of a complicated dog, to be honest. But there was only so much homework that I think the owners did. And she is complicated. But this is what they wanted. I was happy to do it. I was happy to work with them. And then a few months after they completed that, they said, we see some improvements, but we could see you could get us a lot further. So rather than just doing one or the other, they've actually done both, which is just more money. Probably would have been more cost effective with them had they just done the boarding plan, but they didn't want to do that at first.
Right. Yeah.
So don't presume what your client will want to do. I mean, here's another one. I just have this personal opinion that doing a board and train program on a 12-week puppy is a waste of money. Because if you come in for 2 hours, I'll show you what to do. And then if you bring them back at 20 weeks, I'll be able to really, put some training on there for an adolescent that will last. And I had a lady say to me, Mark, would you she said, get out of your own way. I'm trying to give you money. I go, but you're going to have to do it twice. She goes, I'll do it twice. I want to do it twice. And you know what she said to me? My puppy is very wealthy. That's what she said.
Good one.
So I laughed and I took her money times 2. And of course, that puppy was stupendously easy. When I get the babies, I love, but I teach them food, luring, drag, line, potty, scheduling the food, get a feel for what their nutritional, needs really should be. But to a dog lover or a dog professional like us, that's babysitting, but it has value if they perceive it. So now people call me with 12-week-old puppies or babies, 8 weeks planning ahead. I'm like, look, let me tell you the most cost-effective way to do this, or the easiest, most convenient way for you, but it's more expensive. So you pick what you want. And when I started telling people that they could have both, a shocking number of them started taking both, And before I realized what I was telling them before was I was shaming them for not being willing to put the effort in on their puppy. I was shaming them and I was guilting them into not giving me money, which by the way is kind of counterproductive if you have a mortgage, insurance.
Yeah. General expenses.
I don't know how eggs are in Canada right now, but they're not great.
Well, we can still buy eggs here.
You know what? Do you know what? When I want to brag to somebody, I tell them I had an egg salad sandwich for lunch. Stop that and don't brag. So, but my point is that I was making people inadvertently, because I didn't think I wanted to do it, or I thought it was a waste of money, or whatever it was. I just made them feel bad for giving me money. And this lady it is unusual. And you're lucky when you have a client who will drop the curtain of distance between you and them and they'll just open their mind and tell you precisely what they're thinking. She's a very confident lady and she knew what she wanted and she was not shy to tell me, Mark, you be quiet and listen to me a minute. I'm trying to give you money. Why don't you want to take my money? I learned a lot from that. And I have learned to try over the years to get out of my own way and provide what the clients want. Here's what they want. Some of them want it quick and easy. Fine, I'll give you that. I know that you personally are not a big proponent of short lesson plans, but I will tell you, at least in my market, what I have discovered is I have a very hard time selling 10, 8, even 6 pack of lessons. I will say, if you offer a one-off, clients don't like the one-off. It's unbelievable how much you actually can give them in 1 2-hour session. It could be life-changing, but most of them won't believe it, so they won't buy it. So I offer a 3-pack. That has worked for me very, very well because when I'm selling it to the people, I tell them, I'm realistic. That's what you're going to have to do. But at least they think, okay, I can make room in my busy world for 3. That I can. And then some of them wind up being satisfied, got what they want. Some of them sign up for a second 3-pack, similar to what you said earlier. Once in a while, some of them just say, hey, you know what, take the dog. I'm going to do the boarding, and all those things are acceptable to me. And then after the fact, I want people to know, I want to be your guy. I want to be your dog. And what that means is if you wake up in 10 days, 10 weeks, 10 months, 10 years, you got a problem with this dog, you don't know what to do, get a hold of me. I'm gonna help you. If it's complicated, I'm gonna get you here. Is no charge, but I can tweak the set screws once in a while if you just give her back to me for vacation boarding.
100%. I do exactly the same thing. Yeah.
And this is the last point I want to make on that. I charge vacation boarding as though it were training days because
Yep.
they are. And so I knocked the $40 a day. It's damn near as much as it was for round one, except for they can pick their number of days now. Doesn't matter. But
Yeah, and I used to limit it. It had to be a minimum 5, but I let them even come overnight if they have to, but they pay
yeah,
free, you know.
me too.
The thing on that I like and that I use for marketing, and this is an advice to people who are I know a lot of new trainers don't have the option for board and train, but if you can fit 1 dog into your house for a boarding and training, you'll make way more money than you're gonna make on 3 or 4 sets of private lessons. And I will, where was I going with that? For, boarding and training, I will use that as a marketing piece. I only for the what I call tune-up school, come back for tune-up school,
Yeah.
it's only for dogs that have worked with me at some level, whether it's
100% because you don't want otherwise you're training them anyway and you don't have the time for it. But when the train you know this when those kids come back for even if you haven't seen them for a couple of years, in 2 minutes they're like, I remember the drill.
you step out of the car and they go,
Yep. Okay, here we are.
the owners are like ripping their hair out and they hand me the leash. The dog is jumping and hand me the leash. The dog just sits down.
Oops, okay, I know what to do for you.
It's okay. Yeah. But it makes one of the number one things, this is my business advice to new trainers and my students in my academy hear this all the time. The number one way to win over your clients is to make them feel special. Everyone wants to feel important. And by telling them, look, you can bring your dog back here anytime for 1 to however long as you want, and you're gonna get this is the rate, but he's gonna go right back into the program. He's part of our boarding and training program, but I only offer that to my graduates. Or I only offer it if you're far enough along in your private lessons and you want to switch, that's fine. We'll make that arrangement. That's for them. It's not just and they get priority. If Joe Blow calls and wants to bring their unknown dog and Mrs. Smith calls and wants to bring one of my favorite dogs back, guess who gets priority? Of course she does. Mrs. Smith. And that's just another way you have that recurring revenue just keep coming and coming.
And here's how you know you've done it right. When 15 years later, talk about emotional, they text you the thank you because we've lost the dog. But even though it was 15 years possible for us.
Exactly. I had a person, just a funny story, had a person, new client, he just brought his new puppy. I'm gonna get back to the puppy thing in a minute. Floyd. Floyd is a black lab. He's wonderful. And they said to me, same thing. When he called me, the name sounded familiar and the dog's name sounded familiar. So luckily I keep everything in my contacts. I searched it. Up he came. Oh, that dog. She was here for a board and train program when she was too late, crazy. So it took a lot more work to get her to where they wanted her. And then I never heard from him again. And just here the other day, yesterday, he said, what you did with her, he said, she was just the best dog ever. And I said, thank you for that, because sometimes you just don't know when they go away.
No news is good news, but I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah, it's like you just don't. Yeah, well, that's it. I said I don't know whether you went away mad or whether the dog was perfect, because I do keep in touch, but not everybody responds to those emails, and then after a while you stop harassing them. And that's what I'm seeing that round 2 now. I'm starting to get round 2 and round 3 for some of them, and it's
Wait till
very.
you get their kids. You're gonna wait till their kids start coming around.
That's already happened.
Yeah.
Holy crap,
About
yeah.
something. Wait, you were 7 the last time I saw you.
Exactly. Yeah, I've had that. The kids come in with their own dogs, and I'm
Yeah.
like, "What? You okay?" Yeah, that's funny. One of the things I wanted to mention about puppies, just before we go, is and I know when I first worked with you, this conversation didn't come up. And I was, like all new trainers, we're all that in a bag of chips, right? We can fix all these problems. So you don't even think about puppies. You're just fixing. And you miss, where I started into puppies was I realized how much learning I was missing by building from the ground up with puppies. Because honestly, like you, people would call and I'd say, just call me back in 6 months.
Me too. I used to do. Yeah, not anymore.
And not anymore.
I don't want your 12-week money. Go away.
Yeah, just go away. But to counter that, I don't think of it as doing it twice. I give them some options. I say, well, let's just start with this. And then we can see it anytime before, and that's 4 lessons. Anytime we get before the end of the 4 lessons, we can switch over to this, which will see me and you working together for at least the first 6 to 8 months of your dog's life. And it's been a game changer because they're not even questioning anymore. Well, what do I get in the 4 sessions versus this? Like it's it's 3 tiers, and they don't even ask. They just say, yeah, just give me the whole thing.
Oh, no, that's a great idea. Yeah, when you have puppies, I guess I assume, like, here's what he's gonna need at this stage, and then that stage, and, you're buying all of it at once.
Yeah.
It'll be waiting for you when you're ready.
Exactly, and then you can transition, and some of them, and I'll be honest, this is they pay up front.
Yeah, of course.
They get a
I
set.
like that too. Otherwise, by the way, real quick, that's important what you just said, because if you don't get a substantial or all of your money up front, then you turn into a bookkeeper bill collector. And that is not, we're not suited for that.
Well, we're not suited for it, and we love the dogs too much, and we end up letting too much go. So, on that one final note, I remember I'm teaching this to my clients in my academy, my students in the dog training academy, because I see ourselves in them, and they're struggling. They have these clients that are just difficult. That just know, and they can say it's black, the client's going to say it's white. So they're creating this program, and they're creating this handout, and they're creating all these things, and that the clients still aren't doing the work. And there's more than one of my students that are talking to me about this. And the line, you taught me this line, and I've stuck to it, and it's very simple, but it's powerful. Don't be more invested in the dog than the owner is. And
I will come with you to the ends of the earth, but I am not walking behind you. I'm walking next to you. We do this together, or you call me when you're ready. And I try not to be angry at them, because, by the way, if they're screwing it all up, I'm okay with that as long as they don't blame me. If they blame me, then I have to point out where they're falling short. But if they don't blame me, what I want to do is I want to be encouraging, because that will give them permission to come back. Remember the guy who cussed me out for not changing the oil in my car? I learned to change the oil, but I didn't go back to him. Don't be that. In other words, when life picks up, when you have more time, when you're able, I will be here to help. You give them permission to fail, but to pick it back up when they're ready to.
you got to give yourself permission to close that file, at least temporarily, while you open the door for them at a different level when they're ready, so that everybody feels good about it. Because otherwise, it takes up space. As a trainer, it takes up space in your head, trying to, I have a couple of students trying to fix it. I said, don't try to fix it. They're not ready. Just let them know you'll be here.
I sometimes had to remind myself when I was a young trainer, this isn't my dog. This is their dog.
Especially when you do boarding and training.
Right. It's not my dog. Like, I mean, I did cry the first 5 or 10 that went home. And now I'm like a kindergarten. Now I'm like an old grizzled kindergarten teacher. Love you, kid. Go home.
Yeah.
Bye. See you next time. But at the end of the day, yeah, I want to invest with my client. But if the client wants to fight, this makes me sad. I have feelings. I don't want to have to do it this way. I don't understand. Man, I want to talk about that. I want to dig into the why. If you don't understand, I'm going to help you understand why I have this particular opinion about what will work best for your dog. But if you've got feelings that you can't explain, but you just don't like it, I'm going to stay in my lane. And I don't usually say this to people, but like, I'm going to say it to you. I'm not a therapist. I'm not here to take away your sadness. I'm here to help you with your dog. So I'm the dog's therapist. Maybe you need to get your own. And I don't say it that way. You can't.
Right.
Generally. But if you at least understand it in your own mind that, listen, my job is to give you the medicine, to explain why, in my opinion, this is the best medicine for what needs to be done here, and then to entrust that you as an adult will decide what you want to do from here. That is my job. And then to be okay with. I used to spend way too much time and you'll understand this too, trying to convince them that they had to do it my way. And at a certain point, if you try to convince people of things, they will want to argue. Now you're sucked into a hole. People say, I don't want to do that. I'm like, yeah, it's okay. Don't do it then. But here's what I think will happen. And let me know if I'm right. Because if you're right, I want to know that so I can learn from this.
So I can learn. Yes. Yes.
I have a feeling this is what's going to happen. Let me know how it goes. Go with God.
Yeah. And the other thing is the what I call the pre-form. And I know you have one. Everyone has them now. Fill out the form first before we even talk. Then I'll send you a link to my calendar. Then you're going to book an appointment to come either to meet me by Zoom or to come to my facility. And you're going to pay me first so that I'm not spending an hour and a half on the phone doing exactly what you said, like I did for probably the first 3 or 4 years in business, trying to convince them that I was going to help them, and hang up the phone an hour and a half later, and they've got a pocket full of solutions, and I've got nothing but an hour and a half of my life I'll never get back.
This is guys, kids, this is lesson from the trenches here. This lady.
We've already done that.
We've all done this. Listen, we've made every mistake in the entire world so that you don't have to.
Say that's one of my lines to my students in my dog trainer academy, and they appreciate that depth. And I refer to you, and they say they want to know someone that's been there, done that, and they'll say, hey, I'm thinking of doing this. I go, well, okay, I can tell you what happened when I tried that, and things have changed a little bit, so you go ahead. But it's really powerful for them to be able to bounce those, and I'm sure you run into it with people that you work with, that bounce those ideas off someone who's lived it, because it's Okay, I'm glad I didn't go down that rabbit hole for 3 or 4 years. It saves them time and
You
makes money.
people do have to find their own way, and nobody is going to be us. We're not trying to make cookie cutter dog trainers out of you who do exactly what we do. But at the same time, you don't have to reinvent the wheel overall.
Right.
So if you know what came before you, it will be easier to become you and what you will be, which will inevitably be different than your mentor. Absolutely. But what we're here to do is help push you forward faster with less agony than what it took for us.
That's right, that's right. So on that final pearl of wisdom, how can people learn more about Mark Goldberg and find you and take advantage of all your knowledge and wisdom and
Well, I've got
experience?
all kinds of socials. So let's see. My primary website is chicagodogtrainer.com. Then there's Mark with a C, Mark Goldberg, dogtrainer.com. Theartoftrainingyourdog.com if you'd like to find out more about this book. And also the Monks of New Skete and I teach an e-collar dog training workshop. And you can find that at theartoftrainingyourdog.com.
Folks, so there you've heard it. Check all of those places out. And just your chicagodogtrainer.com, there's a story behind that as well, as we have so many. My business, OntarioDogTrainer.com, came exactly from that, because you said make it where your target audience is most. Make it simple and easy to remember. Things have changed a little bit now because I also have KarenLaws.com and KarenDogTrainer.com. But so can they get to all of those things from chicagodogtrainer.com if they went to your website? Does it link to your books and so on?
If you want to link to my books, you do that through theartoftrainingyourdog.com, or you can just go to Amazon and put my name in, Mark Goldberg, Mark with a C, Mark Goldberg, dog book. And you'll
Where else can they buy that besides Amazon?
Amazon bookstore, local bookstores. We're stocked by a number of bookstores, so it just depends on your local bookstore. And if your local bookstore doesn't have it, they can order it easily. They can get that.
All about local. All
Yep,
about
and it's I do too. I love my independent local bookshops. So, but for those people who want it, it's also on audible.com. Everything is on Kindle, iBook, anywhere you can get a book, you can get ours.
I've actually had students call me and say, I'm reading Mark's book on the e-collar one, chapter such and such, he says this, and they've already paid me to do lessons, and you've advised that. Hey, you got my book, but you need someone to walk you through it.
Yeah.
Call this person, that person. You've sent some clients to me, and I super appreciate that. And because we've worked together and we have the same philosophy and the same approach, or very similar approaches, she'll give me something, I go, oh yeah, I remember that. This just means this, and let's do that, and let's think about it this way. So that's kind of fun how the two things can come together.
I mean, if you have to listen, Julia Child wrote The Art of French Cooking. And if you just follow that recipe, you can make really complicated things that, and she'll walk you through it. But it certainly is easier if you have a French chef sitting in the kitchen with you going, hey, hold the knife like that.
That's right. Yeah,
Try
that's
that.
right.
So certainly a professional dog trainer is going to help guide people through the process with much less, much easier. I mean, I get a number of people calling me to do Zoom lessons, even though they have the book. They're just afraid to start the book by themselves. It's really a bit of hand holding sometimes before or during, their journey but at any rate, I think that books are really good. It's a whole nother level when you have a professional dog trainer on your side who you are compatible with, because we're here to smooth the way for you, and you can have a good dog, not when it's old and arthritic, but like now.
Yeah.
You don't
Yeah.
have to.
Yeah, you don't have to wait till it's
He'll calm down when he's 3. No, he won't. He's not calming down till he's 10.
That's
So
right. When you can't walk anymore.
if it's a mountain lion, it's never calming down. So you just train it and it'll be a lot easier for you.
Yeah,
And then
mine's pretty calm. He's pretty calm, but he likes his routine, but that's all part of a different story. So we should do this again
we
sometime.
should. Before we go, by the way, I got to tell you, over your shoulder, you have a stuffed puppy, a dog, and I have the identical one. Mine's
Oh, yeah.
is Murphy, and I use him to demo things when I got to show people puppy things on Zoom.
Cool. I have a whole I'm in my office. I have a separate classroom, but I can't get internet up there. We live in a valley, so get internet anywhere is tough. We just had 5 days without power, by the way. This is our first day back because of an ice storm. But I have a whole suite of them, and then I have a husky, I have a poodle, I have a Springer Spaniel, I have little ones, big ones, and I use them for a variety of things: how to hold the leash, how to walk the dog, how to send.
Boy, guys.
Yeah. See whether or not that's another story about the industry and people who, if you're using stuffed dogs, you must not be a trainer. Let me tell you, if a dog has already got a track record of killing anything, I don't want it going after my dog to test it if it's aggressive. I'll have them just sit there strategically on the floor and let them bring the dog in so I
I've
can.
had a number I've had a number of dogs who killed the other family dog. Universally, by the way, those people are in denial. Like, there really is well, she was old. She was gonna go anyway. That said, it wasn't her fault. Yeah, I mean, like, but I know what you mean. I'm taking fewer of those.
Yeah, I don't yeah, I'm with you there. It's been a pleasure, and I do hope we can do this again because as you can see, we're way over time, and, we could probably do this, for another hour and a half, so we'll get back together again.
Wonderful seeing you, Karen. So great to see you.
Nice seeing you too, my friend.
Bye, everybody.